The Autumn Leaf by Senka Dodig. Another summer surrenders to autumn. Green tree crowns thirsty for rain, and it comes in different forms. It rains and gurgles and drizzles. It pours like from a bucket. It sleets and showers. It thumps and rattles. As children dress in colorful raincoats, so the rain comes in different rhythms. In the center of the town park, on top of the tallest tree, a beautiful spring-born green leaf proudly dangles in the wind. He has resisted the long warm summer, and as the night's rain gives him water to drink and washes him, he stands pleased and clean and fresh, quivering in the sun, thinking about life. He remembers all the wonderful moments of his younger days, when he enjoyed listening to excited voices of children interrupted by giggles that echoed through the park in April and May. He equally enjoyed the early morning bird concerts, as well as the nighttime silence of the sleeping town, and the voices of Anne and Bill greeting each other right under his tree every day on their way to work. "Good morning, Anne." "I hope it is good, Bill." "There is not a cloud in the sky. Looks like it will be," he would reply cheerfully. She would smile, nod her head in approval, and would continue down to the bus stop. Anne was a piano teacher and Bill was a jeweler. It was a pleasure to listen to their gentle voices and witness the mutual affection on their faces. The leaf remembered having seen Bill one morning in May, holding a rose in his hand, waiting for Anne. He walked up and down the path, and Anne was late that day. When he finally saw her, he hid behind the tree and waited. When she approached the tree, still hidden behind, he extended his hand holding a rose and sang softly, "Happy birthday to you." Surprised and almost frightened at first, Anne started laughing. Finally, he showed up, stepped forward, hugged and kissed her, and repeated slowly in a serious voice, "Happy birthday, Anne." Still in his arms, she raised her head, her eyes wide open. "Thank you. You are great," she replied, equally serious. Indeed, those were marvelous days in which the beauty of the tiny world underneath the tree nurtured the leaf's thin body. His bright green color intensified and grew darker day after day. The leaf remembered summer and how it felt invigorating and powerful, making him enjoy his own perfect form. Symmetrically serrated edges with barely visible thin veins radiating in fan shape from the central vein, thus forming an unusual green venation. The juices within it thrived and made the summer heat easier to endure. When the summer holidays began, the hubbub of children became louder and louder, day after day. In the late afternoons, the park was crawling with children from the surrounding buildings, occupying the swings, slides, climbing frames, sandboxes, dandleboards, and carousels. On the benches, sitting comfortably in the shade, their mothers would talk about the events of the day, how Peter from the third floor of Building A had left the kitchen window open all night, and the summer shower accompanied by the wind had washed the walls, leaving ugly long yellow stains on them, how the Martins in Building C had already left for summer vacation, and how Anne and Bill were planning their wedding for the middle of June. And up above, high up on the highest tree, one leaf enjoyed listening to the news. He knew all the tenants and all that was happening in the neighborhood. The three little buildings around the park were his whole world, and through the stories and destinies of the tenants, he had gained the wisdom of life. By listening, one can learn a lot. He knew who was sick, whose parrot had flown away, who had lost the keys, and who brought food to the old Mr. Leo. He heard a quarrel coming from the second floor in Building B between Mrs. Mousy and Mrs. Andrews, and how they made up when the baker, Mr. Mike, invited them over for some cakes. Each day the leaf learnt new lessons from everyday life, how important it was to help and to comfort, how a conversation can be healing, and how a smile didn't cost a cent, yet it was worth a million. He understood that words were as important as deeds because they too could hurt but also heal. He learned that sincerity was more important than the brand of a car, that honesty was not measured by a meter or sold at the market. But above all, he learned that everybody's life was more beautiful when there were friends around to witness the events. Do you have witnesses to your events, or are you lonely? The autumn arrived. The leaf knew that in a month or two he wouldn't be standing there anymore. From his lookout high up, he observed the tree crowns around, the most beautiful fireworks of autumn colors. All the shades of green, yellow, and red, as if hundreds of strange traffic lights mingled their lights irrespective of the usual order. But after each rain, the picture changed. As if the raindrops had washed a layer of color, the shades became paler. Yellow and red shades gradually became brown, thus losing the race in that foregone conclusion, the story that nature had been telling and retelling year after year. Between the two rains of the late autumn, at the end of October, he heard that Anne was expecting a baby. She and Bill were living together on the opposite side of the park. The leaf could clearly see their windows from his high tree. Right underneath their windows, there was a young chestnut tree. Its branches almost touched their windowsill. The leaf had an idea. The following weeks, he spent studying the winds, their direction and speed. He was looking for the one that would blow towards the chestnut tree. Very, very late in the autumn, just before the winter's freezing breath, the leaves die too. But in the spring they are back, alive again. They are born exactly on the tree under which they died the previous winter. So he waited for his wind. Courageously he resisted through the beginning of November and some cold rains. His color had long lost its brightness, and what only a day before had been dark red was now a shabby brown. The wind was blowing, but it was not the one he had been waiting for. This one was howling wildly in the opposite direction, towards the town. The leaf was old and wrinkled. His tip had broken off the week before when during a storm it hit a branch and fell off. The park was desolate. His friends were lying scattered all around. He was the last one still holding on to his tree. He was waiting for the southern wind, the wind that would blow in the direction of Anne's window. The night had fallen and he fell asleep, tired of waiting. The following morning he was awakened by the soft breeze that made him shiver, but not from cold. In that breeze he recognized the birth of the southern wind. With the patience of those who are left with nothing else but patience, he observed the wind as it whirred among the nude branches getting stronger and stronger. He caught a gust, a breath, gave one last look to his home tree and let himself be blown by the wind. He steered his tiny body like a sailor steers a ship and landed softly under the chestnut tree. He breathed his last and crumbled, torn by the flight, on the wet autumn ground. His last thoughts were about the spring, the sound of Anne's piano, and child's laughter, or maybe cry, whichever. Because, my dear little ones, laughter and tears take turns like rain and sun. All things in life constantly change and recreate. So do not cry over the lost moments, for they will find you again someday, even if somewhat changed. The following day, life continued as if nothing had happened. Nobody noticed that the last leaf had vanished from the highest branch of the highest tree in the park. But you, my dear little ones, hush. Only you know where it decided to be born the following spring.